Alright guys, I've gotten to a point in this game where I think I'm going to just take a little bit slower and go through my thought process on pitching and best practices for pitching. So here we go. I got my starting pitcher here. Now, obviously, it's top of the 5th inning and it's 7-0. So obviously, my offense is doing well right now and my pitching is doing well. Before we do anything, look at the player meters on the left-hand side here. You'll notice that Larry LaJoy under his mojo is locked in. Anything like that, this is locked in or jacked or fired up or I forget all the exact names. All of those things means they're on a hot streak. They're doing well. So the mojo level, think that as hot or cold, basically. Is your hot or cold meter. Is this player hot or cold? Right now, under Larry LaJoy, if you look under velocity, junk, and accuracy, velocity is the speed of his pitches. Junk is like his off-speed pitches, his curveball, breaking ball, whatever he has in his arsenal. That's how good it is, how high that bar is in relation to how good those pitches are. And accuracy. That accuracy is basically how fast or how much your cursor bounces around when you're trying to finish your pitch, when you're executing it. If someone has that bar all the way to the end, their pitches are going to be really easy to execute. If that bar is really low, then their pitches are going to be harder to be accurate. And as their stamina goes, you see the stamina bar below that, so will those meters, the velocity, the junk, and accuracy, all go down the longer he stays into the game. If he's pitching really well and there is not having many long innings, is not having long at-bats, it's possible for starting pitchers to finish the whole game and to still be perfectly effective. If they're giving up a lot of runs, they're not going to last the whole game, and you're going to want to keep a close eye on those meters to see when it's time to bring in a new pitcher. Now, if you look below him, the batter we're facing is Log Freely. His mojo right now is neutral. That means he's not hot, he's not cold, he's just kind of somewhere in the middle. Fitness is that's their health. Basically, you don't want to have players in your lineup if their fitness is not all the way. If it doesn't say at least well, if there's something below that, maybe they have an injury or something like that, you're going to want to sub them out until that improves. So anyway, Log Feely, he's neutral on his hot cold, on his mojo. His power is pretty decent. His contact, pretty decent. His speed is about average. So he's about a standard hitter that you're going to face. We're facing the Nemesis team, whose specialty is power. He's their number 6 hitter. So number 6 hitter is not a bad hitter, but it's usually not one of the best hitters. So we'll get started here, and I'll try to go as slow as possible to give you my thought process on why I throw the ball to the different parts of the plate and my thought process behind that. So these white kind of triangles, if you will, are the edges of the plate. So this is the exact corner, the top right corner, which would be both on the inside part of the plate and on the top of the plate. Same with the bottom right, bottom left, and top left. If the ball crosses this square at all in its path towards the catcher, the umpire is going to call it a strike. Doesn't matter where the catcher actually catches it. He could catch it down here, but if the ball had a kind of a rainbow arc to it and came down this way, it could be called a strike if it crossed the plate in this box, if that makes sense, because obviously the catcher is sitting behind this box. Okay? My goal on the first pitch is always to try to get strike one. And I try to throw a pitch that is not an easy pitch to hit, so it's not in the middle of the plate. I try to throw it to one of the corners. And I just try to mix it up between a fastball, a screwed ball is what he has. Changeup also has curveball or slider and curveball. And these arrows will give you an idea of the trajectory the ball will take, assuming you execute it good enough. So I just try to mix it up. I just try to make sure I'm not throwing the same pitch over and over again and they know what to expect. And that would be true if you're playing ranked mode against an actual person. Some things work more so against the CPU than a ranked person. So just keep that in mind. So most of these tips and most of my thought process is facing the CPU. So I'm going to try and get strike one on this guy. I'm going to throw this pitch here, which is a changeup. A lot of hitters look for a fastball on the first pitch. I'm going to throw a changeup. Changeup is going to be a pitch that looks like a fastball, but comes in about 10 to 12 miles an hour slower, and the hitter will likely be out in front and off balance. And I'm going to try to just snip the outside corner here so that it's a strike, but it's also not an easy pitch to hit, if that makes sense. The closer the ball is to the middle of this square here, the easier it's going to be for the hitter to hit it and do some real damage. So let's try to execute that pitch and see if we can get strike one. All right, so not only was it probably going to be a strike, but he actually swung at it and missed it, so that's good enough for strike one. If I'm ahead on strike one, and ahead in the count means, if you're the pitcher, ahead in the count means there's more strikes than balls currently. Then usually my next pitch is a pitch that is designed to look like it's going to be a strike, but not actually end up being a strike. So I'll give you an example. I might do a curveball like this. The ball is going to look like it's going to pass into the strike zone, but I'm hoping that it ends up lower than a strike. So let's see if I can execute that correctly. Inside. So I did execute it correctly. However, it was a good no swing by the batter. It was not appetizing enough for him to try to swing at it. So now the count's even, ball one and strike one. So now I'll go back to do what I do when the count is even, is I try to get a strike by throwing a pitch that is a strike in the zone, but not easily hittable. So let's try this curveball that is hopefully going to land in the zone here. So it was a strike, and he swung at it because he knew it was going to be a strike, and the best he could do with it was hit a foul ball. And a foul ball counts as a strike if you don't already have 2 strikes on you. Okay? So now I got the count in my favor. It's 2 strikes and only 1 ball. Now I'm going to go back to doing what I do when I am ahead in the count. I am going to try to throw a pitch that looks like it's going to be a strike, but is not actually a strike. So let's try another changeup, but this time we're going to do a little bit lower to see if he swings. And he swung at it. He did make contact, but he did not make very good contact. He had 2 strikes on him. When you have 2 strikes on you as a batter, you have to swing at pitches maybe you wouldn't normally swing at, because you have to be careful, because if you let it go by and it is a strike, then you're out. It's strike 3. So in this case, he swung at it. He did a good job making contact on it, but he did not make very good contact, in which case it was an easy fly ball for my left fielder to track down. And I use that general philosophy with most pitching. So I'm going to just pitch to a few batters here. There's already 1 out, so hopefully I'm only pitching to 2 more batters. And hopefully you can see my thought process on that. Strike! No. Low. So I've not executed a couple of pitches there. Inside. Now it's ball 3. Okay, now I got to be careful that I don't walk him. So now I'm going to have to basically throw a pitch that I have to be fairly certain is going to be a strike. Otherwise, I'm going to walk him potentially, and there's going to be a base runner on first. So let's see if I can throw a ball that is on the outside part of the plate here and is accurate. So you see what happens when I have to throw a strike, when I get in a position where I have to throw a strike. It was a decent pitch. It was a 61 rating, which is not terrible, but it's also not great either. And so as a result, I was behind in the count 3-1. I had to throw a pitch that was potentially going to get hit, and that's what happened. So that's why you want to try to be ahead in the count as often as possible. So now there's 2 outs. If this guy gets a hit, then the runner in second is probably going to score. So you can see here, let's look at this different one here. The bottom, the mojo here for Mark Harbormouth. His mojo is tense. Now you might be wondering why that is. His power meter is really high, and his contact is not very good, speed's not very good. His power is really high. I'm going to guess just because he's on a team, the Nemesis, who are a power hitting team. Everyone on their team has power. So I'm going to assume that's the only reason he really has that. It's not common for a pitcher to have that level of power. And it is common for a pitcher to have that low of a contact meter on there. One thing I forgot to mention too is that when you see the white lines, the white vertical line on those things, that means if the yellow bar is past the white line, that means his power is currently higher than normal for whatever reason. If it's lower, that means he might be slumping or something. Now it says he's tense, as I mentioned. My guess is it says tense because he's also the pitcher still for this team. And as the pitcher, he's given up 7 runs, which is not very good. 7 runs in 5 innings is pretty horrible. In fact, it's only 4 innings because we're in the top of the 5th, and he hasn't gone out to the mound for the 5th inning yet. So that is why his shows is tense. He's not having a very good game, so he's tense. So let's see if we can get him out here with a runner on second.
Right.
That pitch was a little more in the strike zone than I was intending, but it's okay. It still was good enough to get him to hit a lazy fly ball to left field, and we recorded it out. So that's pitching. That's pitching in a nutshell. Hope it makes sense. If there's any questions on that, any follow-up questions, that's the nuts and bolts of it. But any follow-up questions or maybe questions about more advanced technique, just contact me. Hit me up in the comment section. Or hit me up on the Discord, and we'll be able to talk about it further. Thanks, guys.